And to talk about the Prime Minister's visit to Trinidad and Tobago, I'm joined by former senior diplomat Amrit Lugun, and also I'm joined by Professor Arvind Kumar. He teaches at the School of International Studies at the Jawaharlal Nehru University in the national capital. Thank you both gentlemen for being on the show. First visit by Narendra Modi as the Prime Minister of India to Trinidad and Tobago. A visit by an Indian Prime Minister after more than quarter of a century. Why is Trinidad and Tobago important for India? Why is this relationship important? Ambassador, you first, please.
Yeah, Trinidad and Tobago, like some of the other Caribbean countries like Guyana, Suriname, has a large percentage of population who are of Indian origin. They had gone about 180 years ago, around 1880s, and the migration continued under the British till 1917. So they form about 40% to 45% of the population of the Caribbean, and the best example is the current Prime Minister who was elected this year itself, as the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Of course, she had been elected earlier also. And she has been conferred with Pravasi Bharatiya Saman Award when she participated in the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, which was held in 2012 in Jaipur. So she has a very fond connection to India. The diaspora keeps a very...
I think both, Ambassador, both the current Prime Minister and the President are of Indian origin, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah. So both, yes, currently both are there. Mr. President Kanum Luglo. So that shows a very deep cultural connect, and both are, especially Prime Minister Kamala Bisesar, because Trinidad and Tobago follows the Westminster system of governance, has been closely associated with India. The cultural diaspora there, who are mainly from the eastern part of India, Bihar, eastern UP, and some parts of Bengal. So they have a deep cultural connect, and therefore Trinidad and Tobago has held the World Hindi Sammelan some time back. Their scholars have been conferred with Hindi Saman Award. Our High Commission there runs Mahatma Gandhi Institute for Cultural Cooperation, where the cultural aspects of India, like yoga, classical dances, musical instruments like tabla, harmonium, are taught regularly. So there is a deep connect.
So you're saying there is a cultural connect? Yes, in fact.
Cultural connect. In addition to that, in the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago, from the economic point of view, is a oil and gas exporter.
Okay.
Very close to Venezuela. It is a Caribbean rich country, and the gesture of of allowing sixth generation persons of Indian origin this OCI card is a big step. I think right now Mauritius has that, because our OCI policy allows OCI conferment up to the third generation. So for Mauritius, I know because I used to deal with that matter. An exception was made now for Trinidad and Tobago. This announcement has been made, and therefore I'm sure good work has been done to document the roots of Indian who went in the late 19th century. And also Trinidad and Tobago. In addition to that, in cricket, of course, we are in the games. We are close. And then also they are a big supporter in the regional organization Caribbean Community, short form CARICOM. So our trade also, though in spite of a big distance, has grown over the years. most of the time trade has been in favor of Trinidad and Tobago because it's a oil exporting country.
Right.
Reliance has a presence there in that country. So though it is small but resource-wise rich.
Yeah, natural gas resource exporting country more.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll come to those aspects one by one. Let me bring in Professor Arvind Kumar. You know, Professor Kumar, Ambassador Lugun was saying, you know, that the cultural connect is very, very important, and that's what the two nations want to build upon. And that was pretty reflective when both prime ministers addressed that event yesterday, where Prime Minister Bisesar was saying that when India gave them vaccines during COVID, when the whole world was holding them, it was more than diplomacy, she says. If I can quote her, she says it was an act of kinship, an act of love. Prime Minister Modi on his part said, we are not just connected by blood and surname, we are connected by belonging. What do we gain by strengthening this cultural connect? They may have gone 180 years back. What are the benefits in terms of diplomacy by strengthening these bonds?
Well, I think it's a very important question you have asked. See, now the time has come for India to engage with all the members of Global South. And perhaps this is going to be very important beginning, especially in Caribbean, where India has attempted to engage with Trinidad and Tobago after far too many years. The larger question basically, which is very important in the current context, that how India is going to leverage its diplomatic interest. And in what ways India and Trinidad and Tobago can engage. Because 40% of Trinidad and Tobago's population are all Indians. And in that context, in fact, if you go back and see the history, during the middle of the 19th century, all these indentured labor started migrating to Trinidad and Tobago. And see the number now, they have reached to 40%. And obviously, the way Prime Minister Modi basically addressed them and the way basically he honored them. If you see the whole Grimitia's legacy was honored by Prime Minister. So I think this shows India's commitment that how best India can emerge as a voice of Global South. And India cannot afford to neglect any of the countries in Caribbean. So this is the beginning. You see the very good selection of Prime Minister Modi's visit to 5 countries in this foreign visit. I think that shows that India is very committed, that how best India can obviously become some sort of a country which could really address the larger problems which these many countries are confronting with. So I think this is a beginning, especially in terms of India's diplomatic outreach and how that could really give dividends and obviously will create win-win situation, I think, for both India and Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay. Let me, go back to Ambassador Lugun. Ambassador, you've been a career diplomat. You understand these things better than any one of us. I mean, love, kinship, belongingness, all that is very good. But diplomacy is rooted in shared interests. Unless you take the relationship, build upon the cultural connect that you have, but unless you take them to hardcore trade, to developmental partnership, the relationship does not go to the next level, it does not solidify. If you look at the trade figures, a mere 341.61 million in the last financial year. Some may argue for a small nation that's not bad, but there is much more potential, especially if we want to emerge as a leader of the Global South, not just voicing their concerns at international fora, but actually playing on the ground role when it comes to developmental partnership.
That is what India has been trying to do because the earlier, say 30, 40 years back, to go beyond the cultural connect, distance, because these countries, Latin American, Caribbean, they have a huge distance between the two
They're
countries.
very, very far, yes.
So that used to put limitations, but over the years, especially after the development of modern shipping and modern communication, easier air travel, and then through the regional cooperation, these handicaps have to a large extent been overcome, and in the 90s, late 90s, I remember, the Ministry of External Affairs, looking into towards the new areas, especially after our country opened up. Remember, we have been launched, a focus LAC or Latin America Caribbean cooperation was launched, and things have moved faster due to that. And for example, even the multilateral organization, especially in view of the historical and cultural connect, like for example, UNDP had and India had launched a health project program in with I think $1 million commitment from under the multilateral scheme for vaccinations, for telemedicine, for setting up health centers in Caribbean. Similarly, the TNT has been looking at India for the setting up of for strengthening their IT center because they find India to be a very good source of source for which they can strengthen their IT sector, ICT sector. So these have been overcome by these steps have overcome the distance handicap, and their former Prime Minister had also visited Mumbai and Gujarat. They had gone to for example, I know in Jamnagar to see the complex of Reliance, because Trinidad and Tobago is a big producer of hydrocarbons.
Right.
Offshore. It produces more than its required needs, though very country-wise area. So these are definitely having spin-offs. And then in agriculture, we have been assisting them a lot, especially it's a small area, and the fact that though they are also English speaking helps in this regard. And though the trade figures by itself may show small figure of 300 something million currently, which has of course increased by 100 million about 4 or 5 years ago.
True.
But lot of trade also happens through third countries, especially USA, where we have lot of trade, or Britain, London, because these are also well connected in TNT. So those sources, if we also count, much of the Indian goods goes through there. So the trade figures, I'm sure, will be much higher than what is it at present.
Okay.
So definitely it's a good time to look into that region, and TNT also is very well located just on the northern tip of the South American continent. A big country like Venezuela, Brazil, and whole Caribbean are quite nearby. So if Indian presence is there in TNT and the favorable leadership allowing our presence there, then through Trinidad and Tobago we can project our economic and political strength in a wider area.
All right. Professor Kumar, it's all very well that there is a big company like Reliance there, and therefore you see these figures, and we import about 221 million, of which major part is the natural gas. But the scope of the relationship can go much further if you include the private sector in terms of SMEs, for example, or developing smaller in healthcare, in iTech, as the ambassador was saying. Look at what we send them. We send them rolling stocks, parts, accessories, pharmaceutical products, plastics, articles, vehicles. So if you get the SME sector involved, the trade can go much higher. But the biggest roadblock to getting across to the Caribbean is connectivity. Many countries of the Caribbean do not have direct flights till date. So you have to first fly into a bigger country, into in Latin America, and then move up to the Caribbean, or go to the US, fly down to the Caribbean. So that is bringing in, strengthening connectivity will boost trade, wouldn't it?
I think you have said the very right thing. Unless there is a good connectivity with the Caribbean countries, I don't think that there is going to be an intensification in any of the areas which we are talking about. But if you see the address delivered by Prime Minister Modi, I think that has indicated India's commitment, that how India is going to, in fact, move forward in having a very close cooperation in 3 areas, that is trade, technology, and security matters. And that again is something which is very important from India's point of view. As I said, that India basically is not looking for some sort of a zero-sum game. India is looking for how best India could really help Trinidad and Tobago in many areas, which could strengthen their overall position in the international system. As you know, it's a very small country with only 1.3 or 1.4 million population. So again, they have their own limitations in every area. But the indication which I think Prime Minister Modi has made in his remarks, that I think he has referred to mission manufacturing, and that is something which speaks volume about that how India is going to be unfolded in the foreseeable future, and that perhaps would help Trinidad and Tobago in many ways. I think these are some of the areas of larger concern, especially on connectivity. But I think the things are going to be intensifying in the foreseeable future. This is the beginning. I think we have to understand this. This is the beginning, perhaps, and obviously how India is going to leverage its interest and also help these Caribbean nations in a larger way would depend how these things are going to be, again, given a shape by improving connectivity.
Okay.